for coming on. I really appreciate it, man. I try to, I want to make this as interactive as possible, especially from the diaspora and Africans who are actually on the continent. I think when we have a dialogue, a lot of times in the conscious community, especially here in America, we talk about Africa, but for some reason in that dialogue, we don't include the diaspora or actually Africans, which is weird. So, my thing is I want to connect to the diaspora, connect to Africans on the continent, Africans in Europe, Africans all over, so we can have an actual authentic conversation. So, once again, thank you, brother, so much for coming on.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay. So we have brother Audu Salisu today, and he's in Austria. Correct?
Yes.
Brother, but you're originally from Nigeria or no?
Yeah, Ghana.
Ghana. Okay, I was just in Ghana. I just love Ghana.
Yeah. I heard that. I heard you were in Ghana recently. Yeah. How did it go?
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. I just got back. I just got back a couple weeks ago. I came back, man. I did Accra. I did Cape Coast. I went to Kumasi. Man, I love Ghana. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's and historically charged with what one. If you're the kind of person that wants to feed your mind, it provides you with everything you need to know.
Yeah, so I absolutely love this. So the topic today is, why are many Africans desperate to get to Europe? And this coincides with what's going on right now in Libya. It's funny, like one of my friends, his sister just came back from Libya when I was in Kumasi, and I didn't have time to sit down and talk to her in regards to her experience. But she went there, she followed her husband to Libya. And basically they were looking for work in Libya. Then the idea or the plan was to try to get to Europe, but obviously it didn't work out. And then also too, when I was in Ghana, a lot of the Ghanaians who went to Libya and it didn't work out, they were brought back the same time when I was just leaving. So because again, I was in Ghana, and again, I was there for maybe 10 days. And from what I noticed, to me, again, I was only there for 10 days. It didn't make sense for someone to leave Ghana to risk their lives crossing the Sahara, then going to Libya, possibly being sold as slaves, and then trying to make it to Italy with the possibility of the boat that they're going to use that capsizing or them dying. For me, it just looked way too risky, in the name of opportunity. Why are they risking their lives just to get to Europe, going through Libya? I mean, can't they go through Morocco or somewhere else? Like, why that route?
There are to answer this question properly, there are a lot of factors that we need to look at.
Go ahead.
We need to look at different factors. And what we need to understand as African people, be it the diaspora or those on the continent, what has to be clear to us is that there has been certain systemic sort of things that have been put in place, and we act within the system. And if we want this question answered properly, we really need to go back as conceptually back as possible in order to put these things into a new perspective. Why am I saying that? As you said, there's a contradiction in the fact that the moment you land in Africa, all you see is opportunities. And from these opportunities, people are just trying to flee. People don't want to stay. People, where you see opportunity, they don't see opportunity. They see hardship. Now, one thing that has to do with this is education. Not if I say education, not that the people are not educated, but the system that educates them. The education system is a very, very bad one. is deeply rooted in the colonial system that actually built its way, that was built in a way that people are supposed to feed the center. Africa functions as a periphery, which is supposed to feed Europe as a center. And the idea is that if you have to make it as a human being, if you have to be a civilized human being, if you have to function as a proper human being, you need to leave the periphery and go to the center.
Okay, so let me ask you this. When I went to Africa, I see white people, I see Chinese, I see Lebanese, I see Arabs in Africa, Indians in Africa doing very well. The people who leave Africa to go to Europe, do they not see that?
They see that, they see that, but they have been educated in a way that tells them that first they need to go to the center, get the capital they need, become the proper human beings that the system want them to be. Don't forget that the system is color stratified. So even if they see a Chinese person or an Indian person, they think that this person has the color that the system prefers. And it's true. Let's not beat around the bush about this.
Go ahead.
True. If a Chinese man goes to stand in a bank in Ghana today, wanting loan, he gets it quicker than the Ghanaian himself.
Wow.
So therefore, this guy thinks that I need to go to Europe, look like the way I'm supposed to look, come back with some degree, speak English the way they speak it in Europe, then I'll be qualified to have the loan that the Indian guy can just walk in and get, or the Chinese guy can just walk in and get. And one of the things that the colonial system has done is to brainwash us to respect a stranger so much to the extent that we give them the respect at the expense of our own selves. Right. So everyone thinks that since he's coming from India, China, or Britain, or US, he's more to be trusted. But if I go as a Ghanaian, if I stand in a bank and I take a loan, I have no room to maneuver. I'm not allowed to fail. They will come after me. But the Chinese guy or the Indian guy, they give him all the space to operate. So then people don't see perspective in their own communities. Mm-hmm. So then all they try to do is, and coupled with the fact that they've been educated to get away. Right. So all they can do is flee. So it creates a contradiction where they see a Chinese person or an Indian person and they think he's coming to my country, he will make all the money, and I can't make the money. And then on top of that is the fact that if you have a leadership, which is a form of a clientele leadership to the Western countries, where each time you turn on the television, you see your own leader reading a long script in front of a European leader, trying to beg him to come and bring aid, then what you try to do is you try to push your leader aside and go get it yourself. Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about, so there was an exchange between the new, is it Macron, the new president of France?
Yeah.
Him and your president of Ghana, where pretty much the president of Ghana told him that it's time for Africa to be independent, I guess, of any type of handouts, I guess. How do you feel about that exchange, or was it just lip service? Was he being authentic when he was saying that?
Divided. Look, I'm divided when it comes to that. That was a frank speech. Mm. That was a frank speech. But beside the fact that I like it as a frank speech, and that I feel like it's about time countries like France need to get it at the back of their minds that the African countries cannot serve them forever. As much as I like that aspect, I also think politically, strategically, it's not a good idea, because you end up playing you're playing your cards too open, and the guy is in a powerful position. He has more power than you have. If you make all your intentions so open, all he's going to do is he's in a position to make sure when he goes back, he can make things more difficult for you to get out of his colonial stratification of the system, because he benefits from it. And here he is in front of you, and you're telling him straightforward, you're telling him that, look, I don't want the way things are, and I want change now.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as I like the fact that he said it frankly, I'm also thinking that if he really means business, then he has to be careful of how frank he will be with European leaders, because they can always find reasons to get rid of you.
Mm. So if that's the case, what should he have done? Because I keep hearing this narrative that, I guess, if African leaders show their hand too soon or too quick, or show their hand at all, that the economic hitmen are going to come and take them out. So how is an African leader supposed to operate so they can operate in the best interest of their African people? Because people keep saying, oh, these African leaders are corrupt. They don't operate in our best interest. But then when a leader comes along who wants to operate in the best interest, they're told they shouldn't do that because the economic hitmen are going to take them out. So how should they posture themselves, I guess?
The best way to do this, and that's my opinion. Yeah, my opinion is the best way to do this is to first of all make sure that within the sub-region in which each and every African leader is, he has allies.
Okay.
He has allies. He has people who think the same way he thinks.
Mm-hmm.
He has to play his cards close to his chest, forget the French and the British leaders for now. Make sure he garners support within Africa, make it possible to increase the trade volume between him and his neighbors.
Uh-huh.
He should start to cut the dependency on this faraway trading. He should cut the dependency by building relationships in his neighborhood.
Mm.
Then when he has allies, because one of the most vulnerable thing that African countries face, which makes it very easy for these economic hitmen to take them down, is these countries most of the time stand alone on their own. But if you have a sub-region where you have minimum 6-7 African countries with the same type of leadership, the same type of mentality, it becomes difficult for a country like France to take a country like Ghana down.
Mm-hmm.
So I would focus, as much as I like what he said, I would focus more on building alliance, making sure that in the sub-region, you shouldn't forget that the division of Africa, the way Africa is apportioned, you shouldn't forget that it wasn't built to serve our interest. It wasn't built to serve the interests of Africans. So if you try to define a new way of doing it, then you stand a new way of doing it, which the French or the British leaders find it difficult to understand and operate with, then you stand a better chance against them. But if he has sliced Africa into pieces the way he wants, and you are standing based on that same slicing of Africa and try to point these kind of things to him, your success rate is very, very low.
But let's look at that region. So you have Ghana, obviously. Then you have the Ivory Coast, who, which ruler or president in that region will support or things like the president of the current president of Ghana? Because I mean, you think the Ivory Coast, the president of the Ivory Coast is the same president I think that gave
exactly.
But what's his name? Blaise, that took out Sankara, that led the coup against Sankara.
Yeah, no, the president of Ivory Coast is the one that was supported when Laurent Gbagbo was taken out.
Right.
The current guy who is called Alassane Ouattara, he actually got a Western backing.
Right.
And that's the point, and that's the point I'm trying to make. So the point I'm trying to make is that, so if you have a neighbor like that who actually basically he and Macron are allies, and then you come out playing your cards so simple, so easy. It's very easy for anybody who wants to harm you to harm you, because you're not being careful. The people who surround you, you're not on the same mental level with them. So when something happens, you're standing on your own.
Right.
But look,
go ahead.
But let's look towards the east. If we look towards the east, for example, there's a lot of pro-democracy movements in Togo right now. If I am a leader of a country like Ghana, and ethnically, more than half of Togo, ethnically, they have a 90%. They rhyme, like, how do I put it? Like, the commonality, the commonality between Togolese and the whole east of Ghana, it just rhymes. There shouldn't actually be a border.
Right.
If I'm a leader of Ghana today, what I will be doing is I'll be playing my card to my chest, look at what is going on in Togo right now, play a profound role of trying my best to be there for the Togolese people and bring Togo closer to us. When they are able to elect their own leaders and they are able to have a leader that thinks like me, then we stand a better chance. So then you take this on, open up one state after the other. And actually, it doesn't hurt to look for other allies, even though they are not within your neighborhood. There are other countries like Rwanda, South Africa, who feels the way you feel.
Do you think Zuma feels the same way?
Not Zuma as a person.
Not
Zuma as a person, but there are many elements within the South African politics who can play decisive roles, who are looking for partners, who are looking for people to partner them and to bring Africa beyond aid. There are many people. You can talk about the leadership of Rwanda. You can talk about, I don't know, like political parties within South Africa who have the economic means, they have the financial means. They want to invest in other places in Africa. They've done that. When Central African Republic, when the French couldn't handle it during the time of Thabo Mbeki, South Africa sent soldiers. They played a leadership role. Even under Zuma did the same thing. You know, and he's not the best guy right now because of what he's got himself involved in. But fact is, fundamentally, there are people there who are ready to work to get Africa beyond aid.
Let me just, somebody in the chat room said Kwame Nkrumah's non-black definition of pan-Africanism led us to slavery today. What are your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't. First of all, I don't see Kwame Nkrumah's pan-Africanism as a non-black thing.
Well, he married okay. So I'm sorry to cut you off. So he married was her name Fatima, his wife?
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. I think you guys have that in the U.S. How much of African ancestry am I supposed to have to be called a black person? And that plays a role in who Fatia, Kwame Nkrumah's wife, is.
Well, see, what makes America unique versus Africa is in America we have this one drop rule that no matter what, like if you your mom could be white, your dad could be black, you're still considered black. In Africa, you're considered colored or mixed still. So,
well, that's a concept. That's a concept that exists in South Africa. That's a concept that exists. The rest of Africa has not defined that yet. We need to be clear on that. This colored concept exists in South Africa, but the rest of Africa has not defined how we want to see this. And that's what I was referring to. So It's right now at this moment, because the rest of Africa, except South Africa, has got this definition of who a colored person is. You cannot place Kwame Nkrumah's wife in a particular place and say she's black or she's white or she's this or she's that. We have not defined that yet. We are yet to define that. But having said that, I also have my issues with Kwame Nkrumah's pan-Africanism.
Okay, go ahead.
And I wouldn't put it in a form of a color. I would put it more of in an ideological way. I will say, how much did he allow socialism to influence his pan-Africanism? You understand what I mean? Because Kwame Nkrumah did not stay entirely with pan-Africanism. Well, he was more a socialist than he is a pan-Africanist when he the way he led Africa.
Yeah, but if you talk to a lot of pan-Africanists, a lot of them are anti-capitalism. Very anti-capitalism. So what system should they have instead of socialism if they don't want to practice capitalism?
Here's my take on this is this. I believe that every kind of ideological system has a way of bringing itself from a philosophical belief towards being able to be implemented as a practice. Now, Pan-Africanism, Black nationalism, all the things that within this modern context, Black people have practiced, none has been able to stand on its own to test its practicality. We've always ended up either mixing it with capitalism or mixing it with communism.
Right.
Or socialism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here is where I say that probably we don't know. And we've seen groups like the Black Panther.
Right.
They have stayed with Black nationalism, and they have actually put in programs that have helped communities.
Right, so, but they're communists though.
They inclined at some point. They inclined. He went the way that Kwame Nkrumah went, which is for me the ambivalence in the whole thing. So my idea is, how much would we have been able to do if we did not mix Pan-Africanism with socialism or Pan-Africanism with capitalism? So for me, it has not got much to do with color. It has more to do with mixing your ideology with other ideologies.
Okay, so what ideology should we use in implementing Pan-Africanism as far as when we talk about resources and money?
I think that first of all, what the continent needs to do is to let people understand. You don't need to define an ideology today. What the continent needs to do now is to politely tell everyone that, look, you're always standing on our shoulders, telling us you can't do it. Let us help you. Let us help you. Let us help you. Over 50 years of post-independent help, we see where it has taken us. Now, more of the youth are leaving than before. So obviously, every evidence shows that help has not brought us far. So let us just get some breathing space, like the Chinese did in the 60s. Somebody will come up. It could eventually end up being capitalism. It could end up being communism. It could end up being Black nationalism. It could end up being Pan-Africanism. Whatever it ends up being, where the problem lies is the fact that everybody wants to help Africa, and Africa cannot. Africa is made up of people who have brains in their heads and can think and come up with something. But as long as they have people constantly telling them, no, you can't do it. No, you can't do it. Unless you take help from me, you will not be able to do it. The moment we cut this umbilical cord and understand that we need to think on our own, then something will come up naturally. And I think this space to think is what is missing. But I wouldn't start by defining and saying, let's go with this one or this two ideologies. No, I wouldn't start like that. I would first want Africa to have the space it needs without everybody bringing in all kinds of help or all kinds of product and succumbing Africa to their agenda. Problem.
Okay. So what can we do as Africans to make, I guess, Africa more desirable and keep people from wanting to escape Africa, well, escape like they're in prison, but flee Africa to go to Europe and America?
I started with the idea of education,
Mm-hmm.
and I think education, education, education. And each time I talk about education, I'm not talking about the people putting more kids to school as people will define it. The current president of Ghana, he thinks that if he makes education free, then we will develop. I don't think so. I think the problem is not with the people. The educational system itself creates a contradiction within you.
Mm-hmm.
Beside the fact that the language you're supposed to be educated with is not a language you're comfortable with, you have to get out of your home to go and learn a new language, and then learning the language itself is a hurdle. After you get over that hurdle, before you get education, and the whole education system is stratified in a way that it teaches you, basically, if I should sum it up, all that the education system says to you is that Britain is the best place, and the place where you are is where poverty comes from, where it epitomizes poverty. The place where you come from is the archetype of poverty. So what the education system teaches you is you need to get out, you need to run out. The education system is not technical, it's very philosophic, and the philosophy is that is deeply rooted in Middle Age European thinking, which actually teaches you to hate yourself. Because the Western European education system is based on philosophically is underpinned by Greek rationality first, and then most of its material is based in Middle Age European thinking, and none of these philosophers thought a black person is actually human. So why are we using this education to continue to teach ourselves? So definitely it teaches us to hate ourselves. So the education system is what we need to look at. We need to come up with new ways of seeing ourselves. That will be the only thing that will keep us on that continent. But as long as we educate ourselves with a system that doesn't consider us human enough, we will always flee to those places where we can get together with Europeans and become what the system sees as a better human.
Let me ask you, what role does religion, do you think, play in what Africans wanting to get to Europe, or does it play a role at all?
Like in the immediate post-independent Africa, it played a huge role. You have, like, I'm a Muslim, mm-hmm. and you have people in my community being taken to Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and Qatar to study Islamic religion. Mm-hmm. And you have scholarship system, Commonwealth scholarship, and all kinds of scholarship system that took people from Africa to Europe to go and study. And these things are given, these kind of scholarship are given by religious institutions. So automatically it is connected to religion. But we have come to learn religion in this new millennium. We have come to put religion in a context where I can keep my religion in my bedroom and still function and do things as an African with other Africans. Yes, we are still in the minority. The people who can think like this are still the minority. But I believe that we cannot, if the system has used over, you should think about it like this. Before the Europeans came, there were Arab slavers.
Right.
There was Arab slavers, and then there was European slavers. This is, if you put it together, over 800 years of putting all of these things in Africa. So we can't get it. We can't get it out so quick. We will need to work slowly towards getting out of it. And if I look at when I was growing up in the 80s and the 90s in West Africa, crisscrossing West Africa with my parents, I think that if I look at that time where people are just waiting to be taken to England to go and study, the system has changed now. People are more self-aware. People have believed in themselves right now, and it's going to continue. It's going to be slow, but it will be unfair to try to solve a problem that someone put in place for the last 800 years. You can't use 1 century to solve it. So it will be slow, but I think that, yes, religion was used to instrumentalize us to hate ourselves, but we are slowly getting out of that. And the more we can put religion, into our private life and collaborate, the more we will be able to achieve.
I agree. When I was in Ghana, man, there was just these TV pastors and their ads all over the place.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. That's an interesting concept, and that's what I love about Ghana. I love this about Ghana. They say that like idle hands, they easily fall into conflict. Right. But in Ghana, when people are idle, they don't think of creating chaos. They rather come up with innovative ways, be it exploiting religion, right, be it exploiting earth. They will exploit anything for as long as they don't get arms and start fighting against each other. Which I have to commend Ghana on that. I know that these pastors it's just a way for them to make money. But as much as I don't like that, I think I prefer that to leaving the youth like that, because look at the politics. The politics can't give people jobs. So instead of going to factories to work, they go to church every day.
Every day. Yeah, every day.
Yes, in Ghana, day and night, every day, every night, people go to church. But I let them go to church instead of, because when they sit down without doing anything, then the whole thing could generate into chaos. So as long as it's keeping the people busy, let them do it. That's my approach to that. I don't like it, but I don't think it's harming anyone, because it's keeping people busy. But at the same time, it's also feeding into this religious education that is making one incapable of doing technical stuff. So because if you look at, for example, the number of books that are written in Ghana, 99% of the books are about religion. Nobody writes a technical book to help people to go from A to B in feeding themselves. Every publication that comes out is about how to find God, how to find God, how to find God.
Someone asked. Oh, is there echo on your end? Like, is it echoing?
No, there's no echo on my end.
Okay, somebody asked in the chat room, is it a possibility that a Black American could become president of an African country?
Well, that's a very nice question. Hello?
Yeah, I'm right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I've personally dreamt of this kind of a thing. Can you imagine like all of this, some of these retired FBI officers, putting them in charge of security at the AU level to be able to come up with a way for us to think in a way that, fair enough, we are going to put the African military together, give it to some of these guys to run, and put in place measures that says that if you start a conflict within Africa, the rest of the African military is going to come after you. So if you have a dispute, settle the dispute at table. Now, when I was thinking about this, I thought about this, and I realized that the way we have been divided, the only way we can do something like this is if we bring somebody from the outside. And if we bring somebody from the outside, the person has to look like us. The person has to understand the culture. The person has to have no ulterior motives. And who best should we put in a place like this than an African American or a British black person.
Mm-hmm.
So that person's question to me makes so much sense.
Wow. Well, what is the African Union really doing in regards to Africans wanting to leave Africa and go to Europe desperately? Like, what does the African Union do? What role are they playing in stopping this? And also, what role are they playing in ending slavery in Libya?
The African Union, like any other, like as I was saying, like ourselves as individuals, needs, it's a wheel. The African Union is a wheel that is grinding very, very slowly. Now, the African Union has a huge bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
To take care of its own bureaucracy alone is work. So what happens is that it becomes a union that is actually doing whatever it can to stay afloat. So in the everyday life of doing whatever it can to stay afloat, if some issue pops up somewhere, then it takes on that issue. And don't forget that it's not a union that funds itself. No African taxpayer pays money to AU to run itself. So there's no urge for accountability. I'm not sure of the numbers, but I understand that part of its budget comes from the European Union and part of its budget comes from other outside source.
Actually, I think the African Union is part of the United Nations somehow, the UN. Like they're affiliated with the United Nations.
Exactly. I think the UN funds it somehow. The European Union pays something. So if you have a machinery like that, that does not like it doesn't collect tax money from us on the continent, so it doesn't feel the urge to be there for us. Imagine if we have to pay taxes. If Ghana has to bring a percentage, Nigeria brings a percentage, South Africa brings a percentage. If South African government tells AU that my people are dying in Libya, are they going to drag their feet? No, they will not drag their feet. But because we are not the ones contributing to keeping it afloat, they don't owe us any explanation. So they move when they want to move, and they come back when they want to come back.
But the thing is, didn't Gaddafi start the African Union or fund it, and the African Union still is not getting involved in what's going on?
Yeah. So this is the thing, because like other people, how much minerals can be found in Africa, so it makes sense that other people have interest in whatever is going on in Africa. So when they realized that the old OAU, the Organization of African Union, Organization of African Unity, was redundant, they came up with this idea of forming the AU. So I don't know. I've done this research, but way back, it's when I was writing my master's thesis in 2005. I did this research, and it was around that time. So they basically, to put it in a nutshell, they became somehow divided, and NEPAD was formed. NEPAD was something basically one way or the other, something like the AU.
Mm-hmm.
So you had some of the African leaders believing more in NEPAD, and you had some others believing more in AU.
Mm-hmm.
So through this division, somehow, I don't know, like NEPAD, I don't know what happened to NEPAD, but you don't hear people mention NEPAD anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So then it all became AU somehow. But I think Gaddafi continued to fund AU somehow, together with South Africa. They are the highest contributors to AU, and the rest comes from outside. I think I'm not sure of that, but basically that's how it looks. So when NEPAD sort of died out, it became AU became more or less Gaddafi's baby. being run together with the European Union and other funding agencies. And I think now the World Bank and many others are also included. I'm not sure of how it is run, but what I know for sure is that it's not being run by the taxpayers' money.
Okay.
So it cannot be accountable to the people.
Yeah, that's just crazy. But when will any, I guess, African organization be accountable to the people? That's the issue that we're
Well,
having.
that's what you will expect. That's what you will expect from an African organization, right? But it's not like that. So therefore, it makes sense that it doesn't function to for the people the way the people would want to have it.
So do many Africans who, because I'm starting to see this some here in America, do many Africans who leave Africa to go to Europe, once they get there, do they sometimes regret even going?
Yeah, a lot. Like 99% of the people regret. Yeah, no, 99% of the people regret. But the regret has to do, the level of the regret has to do with your self-awareness. The more self-educated, self-aware you are, the higher the regret. But you have a lot of people who just love it being out here in Europe so that they can work and work and work and work in a year. And then when they have 4 weeks of holiday, they just take up as much material stuff as they can, go back to the communities, where structures need to be put in place. They go back into the old structures that they left, and then showing off with the second-hand Mercedes-Benz that they had sent from Europe to bring home,
Right.
or the nice Nike shoes that they are wearing in the dusty community.
Right.
So it's, you know what I mean? So it depends on your self-awareness. And if I go to Africa, I wear flip-flops and the shorts
that's all I wear. I wear flip-flops and my Ankara or Kente or African wear. That's all I wear. Like I wear this or in flip-flops.
Yeah. But then you have people who wear leather in 40 degrees Celsius, as it's very hot, and they think they have to wear leather jackets, and they paid $5,000 for the leather jackets. So it depends on how how much your self-awareness is there. So there are people who do regret, but there are also people who don't regret.
It's crazy. Yeah, like I said, when I go, I wear this, my Capitan.
Yeah, I have like I always take like tons of t-shirts with me, and then I just leave it for kids and before I go. So yeah, it depends on how much awareness you have, and some people don't care. They wear the most expensive shoes in a very, very, very dirty environment. Excuse me to say, I mean, it's my environment. I love it. That's where I grew up, and I'll defend it. But I cannot work so hard and come wearing a Versace shoe that costs €1,000 in a community where people struggle for 2 meals a day. I just can't reconcile that.
Right.
And that's the point I'm trying to make.
But in these communities where people are struggling to eat 2 meals a day, you see a lot of people in the community wearing the fake Versace shoes or the fake Versace belts.
Yeah. So that goes back to this issue that I was talking about, this education, this mental. What is our mental state? We are not aware mentally where we are. 99. I keep giving it this percentage, but probably I'm wrong. But most people are not. They cannot cognitively connect what their mental state to what they do on a daily basis. Like right now, the last time I was in Africa, I was in 3 different countries, and the trend that I saw is that a lot of entrepreneurs are going to Europe, getting franchise for betting companies, and sports betting is huge now in Ghana, in Senegal, in Burkina Faso, in Togo. Sports betting is big now. and the kids don't go to school, the kids don't do anything. They spend time in these betting places, betting the little money that they get from their parents. So then I look at them and I ask myself, how are they going to grow up? You know, how are they going to grow up and serve their communities?
Mm. So instead of Africans trying to get to Europe and America, why don't other Africans just relocate to different African countries? I mean, is there a policy like you have the ECOWAS, the Western Bloc? I mean, instead of a Ghanaian giving up hope and going to Europe, why won't that Ghanaian try to go to what's another Sierra Leone or Liberia? Or do they just see there's no hope in Africa at all?
We have communities like that. We have communities like that. Within the sub-region, you have Ghanaian communities in Mali, you have Malians in Ghana, you have Nigerians in Ghana. We do that. We do that. But the reason why people still think that they must get out of Africa, as I keep saying, is the way we have been educated to think that, okay, I can go to Senegal. Sometimes I know people, I personally know someone who lives in New York right now. He's a Senegalese person. He used to come to my father in Ghana, get artifacts. He used to come to my family, get artifacts, sell them in Senegal, bring the Senegalese one in Ghana, sell them and go back to Senegal, doing that. And he was making money. He was making money. And then he went to a trade fair in Ghana, made a bulky amount of money, and then decided to leave the business that he was making money with and move to New York. Okay. And I don't know what he's doing right now. Probably washing dishes. And he's somebody who was at that time, he was over 40 already, probably working in some factory or something. And I can tell you for sure that he definitely regretted. So it always comes back to our mental state, the mentality. You know, like he was making enough income, but he still felt he wouldn't be the man he's supposed to be if he has not given up this business that he was making so much money with and went to New York.
Like, so you said he was buying artifacts. Like, what do you mean? Like stuff like, I don't know, I got this lamp right here, this African lamp.
For example.
So he's buying stuff like this.
Stuff like this. We know the difference. The traders know the difference. So there are stuff that I done in Senegal. Senegalese stuff are more or less textile based.
Right.
And we don't have, their textile have better qualities compared to our own in Ghana.
Yeah.
So he will bring just like what you are wearing. He will bring them to Ghana, and then we have carvers. We have some of the best carvers, and then he will take the carvings. He would part of the textile. He will take money for them, and part of them he will take carvings, and then he will bring them to Senegal, and he will do the same thing. He will take part of the carvings that he will bring to Senegal. He will take money for them, and part of it he will take textile for them.
Okay.
And he was doing this back and forth, and he was making a lot of money, but then he decided to move to New York. You know, so it all goes down to the mental state, our state of mind. We have just been traumatized into thinking that if we don't get out and go to the West, we are not proper human beings.
Right.
So we keep feeding into this trauma every day. We feed into this trauma every day until we have fed this trauma to the extent that it doesn't work anymore. I don't think we will stop doing it, because when you gather young people in Africa today and you try to tell them, don't go, they laugh at you. They laugh at you. You know?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Brother Daniel in the chat room. Thank you for the super chat. Can we please get the likes up? I mean, we have people in the chat room, but there's not enough likes to match how many people are in the chat room. Now, Brother Audu, you've written books, correct?
Yeah.
Let's talk about your book some as well. That you've written.
I've written essays, but So far, I've published only one book.
Okay.
And the book that I published is basically almost about what we are talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
So what I try to look at is in the space that I am right now. The more young Black people are coming up who don't know what their identity is. Are they Africans? Are they Austrians? Are they Europeans? Whatever they are, they don't know. They only hear stories about where their parents come from.
Mm-hmm.
So the book that I published, which is entitled Being Afro-Austrian,
Wow.
what
Okay.
I try to do is I try to put in perspective what it means to be in a space that you try to identify with, but the space does not see you as part of the society. And then again, what you have about the space that you claim to be from is just nostalgia. But when you get down there in Africa, you're treated just like a stranger. So you are between two identities. You're between two identities that you actually can. So that's what I try to look at, and I try to look at like ways and means of accepting ourselves and re-questioning the mental state in which we are right now, whether it's proper for us to live our lives with.
So what brought you to Austria from Ghana?
Well, my brother is here. My sister is she's in Italy right now, but I have family here. But we do go back. We do go back as often as we can, and we have made effort to establish businesses, and we're trying to repatriate as soon as we can.
Okay. Now, are you from the north in Ghana? Because you're Muslim. Are you from the north? Okay.
By ethnicity from the north, but growing up in the south.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, the identity in West Africa is like that. We have the northness and the southness, but because the big cities are in the south, most of the population is in the south. But we identify as southness and northness.
Okay. Okay. When do you plan on I guess going back to when I was in Ghana, man, I absolutely loved it, man. Ghana is beautiful. It's a beautiful country.
Yeah, it is beautiful, but there are certain things that we need to put in place to I don't think we need much. What we need to do is to make sure that we can guarantee people salaries of minimum 300. I think if we can guarantee that a structure that gives someone a salaries of $300 a month, they wouldn't have to go anywhere. And the economic situation, we need to put certain things like this in place. But like you said, for a long time, we've had a leader. We now have a leader who thinks that the French, the British should all leave us alone and then we can make it. I hope, from the way I see, he's capable of following his words with action. But how much of the people will understand that? Because if you're trying to build a self-sufficient economy, it's always difficult in the beginning. And sometimes a leader comes who can do the things, but when he starts facing pressure from the short-term difficulties, then he's kind of leave his obligation and start doing what everybody wants to see him do. So I hope this guy will not be like that, and he can put the structures in place so that more and more of us will come back and help and make sure that the next generation don't have to want to leave the continent.
Yeah, and the thing is, some people are like $300. That's not a lot. In Ghana, $300 a month is a decent amount of money because you can rent a room for $100 in Ghana. That's decent.
So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just imagine if the leadership can make sure that minimum wage is $300 and people will get paid.
Right.
They wouldn't want to leave, you know.
Yeah. 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, but everybody in the chat room, thank you so much for coming on with us this morning. I know it's afternoon where you are.
Yeah.
Kevin, thank you for the super chat, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the are enjoying the dialogue. Let's see here. Miss Halima said she loves you in the chat room.
Okay, thanks.
let me tell you what exactly she said. She said, where's Halima at? This guy brings tears to my eyes. He speaks the truth. We need to educate ourselves on our and our other African brothers and sisters. So people are definitely enjoying the dialogue.
I'm happy. I appreciate that.
Mm. And don't be a stranger. You can come on anytime you want to.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be happy. I'll be happy to come on,
Yeah.
because we're looking for channels like this. There's a lot of effort being made. We're advising people. We set up a consultancy platform where we advise people on how to properly repatriate. A lot of people repatriate, but then they find themselves coming back to the Western world again, because the preparation for the repatriation has not been done from a mental stage. It has not been done properly. But when you get a community of people who can help you with the tools you need to be mentally prepared before you repatriate, you stay longer.
Mm-hmm.
And we've set up a community and a platform where people get advice on the proper ways to repatriate. So I'll be happy to come back and speak to you and give some more tips about the proper way to repatriate to Africa and not have to go and lose money and come back again.
Now, when you say repatriate, because there's like different definitions of repatriate. I know a lot of Black Americans who have relocated and moved. Because my definition of repatriate is you actually become a citizen.
Exactly.
You have a passport ID in that country.
That's one of the things. That's one of the things that people don't know. Countries like Ghana, countries like Rwanda, they have in their constitutional provisions, there are constitutional provisions made, and the processes are in place for a diasporan to acquire citizenship. And if you know these processes and you put them in place before you go, it makes things very easy. Mm-hmm. And that's where people like us come in. We can tell you what you need to know, what area of business you want to go in, what do you want to do? Do you just want to go and stay? Sometimes we even connect people with families. People, there are retired people living in Ghana, in the north of Ghana, in the west, mostly on the western coast, where people just want to go and rest, and when you can find them places where they can connect with people, they usually don't come back. But when people just get up and go on their own, whether they're just relocating, and sometimes people start businesses with brilliant business ideas, but they can't sustain them. Studied the whole thing. They have not studied themselves in relation to where they are going to. You could end up, sometimes people end up in a community where, even though their skin color is black, their accent makes people call them white people. And then they get angry because they are being called white people, and then they lose track, and then what they want to do does not very well. But when you can talk to people, when you can join the community and you can talk to people and you can understand what it means before you get there, you create some kind of you develop some kind of a thick skin. And then you know that, okay, these people calling me these names, they're just ignorant, and I'm going to build something that will help them.
I want to give a shout out to Bojiko. I hope I said that right. Thank you for the super chat. Des Johnson, thank you for the super chat. From Gariga, who's a regular. I appreciate the super chat, family. And also Yusuf, thank you for the super chat. And good morning, Nancy. I see you in the chat room. Good morning. Nancy wants to know, Nancy, is this a question you're asking? I lose my African nationality. Will they accept me as French easily? Is that your question, Nancy? I guess we're covering that. So people who, I guess, okay, here we go. Africans who have left Africa for Europe or America and then want to end up coming back because we'll say things didn't work out. How are they viewed when they come back to Africa?
That's the worst situation one can find themselves in, which is why a lot of people are not doing very well in Europe, but they don't want to go back.
Okay.
Because they are seen as losers.
Wow.
So to go home and be seen as losers, a lot of people can't stomach that. So they stay here, and then they become a burden on the system here, and the system tries to tell them, look, you have to go, but they don't want to go because they know that if they go, their communities will not accept them. Their communities will see them as losers. And sometimes it drives people to get into bad companies, to do all kinds of things just to get money.
Illegal activities, I guess, you're referring to.
Yeah.
You're referring to. But brother Audu, thank you so much for coming on. We're gonna go ahead and close out. I'll let you have the final word. You know, shout out your page, how people can get in contact with you. Shout out your books, where people could purchase these books, and all that good stuff. Yeah,
my consultancy page is called kemetconsulting.com.
Okay, that's KEMET.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put it in the chat right now. KEMET
consulting.com.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you contact me through that page and you want any advice about repatriation project in Africa, I can give you advice on that. And beside that, my books can be bought on Amazon. It can be bought on Abe Books and all the platforms that you can find online. You can buy my books through those platforms.
Okay, what's the name of your book again?
It's called Being Afro-Austrian.
Put that in the chat room. Afro-Austrian on Amazon. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So that's in the chat room. So people, make sure you guys support this brother as well. Go buy his book. If you have any questions in regards to repatriation, make sure you guys go to his site, drop him a message. Yeah, brother. Again, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. And let's. I'll be ready to come back anytime you want me to.
Okay. Well, if you could come, if you want to come back on tomorrow morning and talk about the repatriation, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So tomorrow, this same time.
Same time.
Dinner time, 8 a.m. Atlanta time.
Yes, sir.
Repatriation.
Yes, sir. We'll talk about it.
Thank you.
All right, brother. I appreciate it. Guys, make sure everyone who's new to the chat room or new to the page, make sure you like, make sure you share. Kazmu John, thank you so much for the super chat. Make sure you guys go to search for Uhuru on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. Also go to searchforuhuru.com, go to dynastymirror.com, and also make sure you go to amazon.com, search your name, Dynasty Mirror, please buy a book. People, the reason why I'm doing this is I want to bridge the gap between the diaspora and Africa. I want to make this as interactive as possible. I want people of the diaspora and people on the continent to come on and express their views and give their story, because I think that's the missing piece. I see a lot of Black Americans talk about repatriation and Africa this and Africa that, but the diaspora or Africans on the continent are not included in the dialogue. I hear a lot of Africans sometimes talking about pan-Africanism, but again, they're not including the diaspora or Black Americans. So it's like, how can you have that conversation? So again, it's time for us to dialogue. And we just learn so much from each other once we have dialogues and conversations like this. So I do thank you so much for coming on. Everybody in the chat room, thank you so much for coming on early this Friday morning. If you're in America, it's early. I'm sorry, Saturday morning. I'm tripping. Early Saturday morning. I know it's early. Thank you so much. Dynasty Mirror, the Kapitan Don. Till next time. Peace.